Tom had always been fascinated with technology. When electric cars started becoming popular, he promised himself that one day he would own one. After saving for months and researching different models, he finally bought a shiny blue electric car. It was his pride and joy. Every time he drove it, he felt excited like a kid with a new toy. The car was quiet, smooth, and made him feel like he was stepping into the future. To support his new car, Tom also invested in a personal EV charging station. He hired a licensed electrician, got all the necessary permits, and had it installed right beside his driveway. It was a bit expensive, but Tom considered it a smart choice. He knew it would save him time, energy, and money in the long run. Every evening after returning from work, he would park the car, plug it in, and let it charge overnight. By morning, the battery would always be ready for his daily routine. For a few weeks, everything went perfectly. Tom would wake up early, sip his coffee, and enjoy the sight of his car waiting, fully charged, ready to go. He felt proud that he was contributing to a cleaner environment while also enjoying the convenience of his own charging station. But one morning, Tom noticed something unusual. When he checked the car, the battery was not fully charged. At first, he thought he might have forgotten to connect it properly. Maybe he had been distracted the night before. He brushed it off as a small mistake. The same thing happened the next night. The battery percentage was lower than expected. Tom was careful this time, making sure the cable was plugged in tightly. Yet again, the next morning, the charge was incomplete. Confused and slightly worried, he started to suspect that something was wrong. To figure it out, Tom checked the security camera installed outside his home. The camera overlooked the driveway, mainly for safety reasons. As he rewound the footage, his eyes widened in shock. At around midnight, a figure appeared on the screen. It was none other than his neighbor, Karen. She was calmly walking over with her own electric car, unplugging Tom's car and plugging hers into his charging station. She left it connected for hours, then returned early in the morning to switch it back before Tom woke up. Tom leaned back in his chair, stunned. He replayed the video again just to be sure. There was no mistake. Karen was secretly using his charger without asking. Not once, but several times. It was almost like she had made it part of her routine. Karen was not just any neighbor. She was the president of the Homeowners Association, the HOA. She loved the title and made sure everyone knew it. She often gave notices about small things. A fence that was painted the wrong color, grass that was a little too long, or decorations that did not follow the community style. Many neighbors whispered about her being bossy, but nobody dared to argue openly. Now Tom realized she had crossed a new line. The next morning, Tom walked outside. Karen happened to be in her front yard watering her plants. Tom decided to confront her politely. "Good morning, Karen," Tom began, trying to keep his voice calm. Karen looked up and smiled in that way that never seemed genuine. "Good morning, Tom." "I noticed something on my camera," Tom continued. "It seems you have been using my EV charger at night. I'd appreciate it if you asked first. It uses my electricity and I need it for my car." Karen gave a smirk, tilting her head slightly. "Oh, Tom, it's just a charger. You should be happy to help your neighbors. We're all part of the same community. Besides, as HOA president, I encourage sharing resources. It's good for everyone," Tom frowned. "It's not a community charger. I paid for it and I pay for the electricity. Please don't use it without asking." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic. You have plenty of power. I'll only use it when I need to." She turned back to her plants as if the conversation was over. Tom felt frustration rise inside him, but he controlled it. He knew arguing with her in that moment would not work. Karen was not the type to admit she was wrong. She had a reputation for twisting situations to make herself look like the victim. Over the next few nights, Tom kept checking his camera. As expected, Karen continued her secret visits. She acted as though his words had meant nothing. Every time he saw her using the charger, Tom felt more determined. He realized that being polite would not stop her. He needed another plan. One evening, Tom invited his friend Sam over. Sam was good with electronics and Tom trusted his advice. Over cups of tea, Tom showed him the camera footage. Sam laughed in disbelief. "Wow, she's bold," Sam said. "She really thinks she owns the place." "Yeah," Tom sighed. "But I don't want to start a war with the HOA. She'll find ways to make my life miserable if I confront her too strongly." Sam thought for a moment. "Then don't confront her. Outsmart her." If she wants to keep using your charger, give her a surprise she won't forget. Tom's eyebrows rose. What do you mean? I mean set a trap. Nothing harmful, of course, but something that will make her stop on her own. You need to show her that taking advantage of you has consequences. Tom nodded slowly. The idea made sense. He didn't want to be mean, but he also couldn't let Karen continue. If he allowed it once, she would never stop. That night, Tom sat alone in his living room thinking about what kind of trap would work. He wanted something clever but safe. He wanted Karen to realize that she was crossing boundaries without starting an open fight. The more he thought, the more determined he became. Meanwhile, Karen carried on with her nightly routine, completely unaware that Tom was planning something. She walked with confidence, believing that nobody could question her actions. After all, she was the HOA president. In her mind, she had power over the entire neighborhood. She considered the charger just another benefit of her position. But Tom was not the kind of person to let things go so easily. He had worked hard for his car and his charging station. He valued fairness, and he knew that letting Karen take advantage of him would only make her bolder. The situation had turned into a silent battle of patience. Tom was calm on the outside, but inside his mind was racing with strategies. He started making notes, sketching small ideas, and researching options online. The problem had become more than just about electricity. It was about respect. One evening, as Tom stood on his porch, he looked at his car and then at the charger. He could almost picture Karen sneaking over in the dark, plugging in her car as if it was hers. A small smile appeared on his face. He finally had an idea. The first step was preparation. The second step was timing. The third step was patience, and so the stage was set. Tom was ready to turn the tables. What Karen did not know was that her days of free charging were about to come to an end, and the trap Tom was planning would teach her a lesson she would never forget. Tom sat at his desk with a notebook open in front of him. He had written the word plan across the top of the page in big letters. He knew that if he wanted to stop Karen from using his charger, he had to think carefully. A direct argument would only give her a chance to play the victim. What he needed was a way to make her realize that she could not get away with taking advantage of him. He started listing ideas. The first idea was simple: install a lock on the charger. But Tom quickly crossed that off the list. Karen was the type of person who would complain to the HOA about unfriendly behavior. She might even claim that a lock was against some rule, even if it was not. The second idea was to move the charger inside the garage. But that would mean drilling new holes, paying for wiring again, and losing the convenience of having it right outside. Tom sighed and tapped his pen on the page. He wanted something smarter. Sam's words echoed in his head. Outsmart her. Tom leaned back in his chair and thought about what annoyed Karen the most. She loved control. She loved appearing powerful, and she loved pretending she was always right. What she hated was embarrassment. If she was ever proven wrong in front of others, she would get flustered. That gave Tom a direction. The next day, Tom stopped by a hardware store. He bought a few supplies: a motion sensor, a small speaker, and some wiring. He already had his security camera, but this would add another layer. When Karen tried to plug in again, the motion sensor would activate the speaker. Tom planned to record a message that would play loudly enough for the whole street to hear. That evening, Tom and Sam set everything up. The motion sensor was connected near the charger. The speaker was hidden in a small box that looked like a garden decoration. After testing, the system worked perfectly. What are you going to record? Sam asked with a grin. Tom smiled. Something polite but embarrassing. Maybe a message like, "Warning, you are using private property without permission. Please step away from the charger." Sam laughed. Oh, that will make her furious. She'll hate that the neighbors can hear it. Tom tested the recording a few times. The voice was calm but firm. He wanted it to sound official, almost like a security system. After checking everything twice, he felt ready. That night, Tom sat inside his house with the lights dimmed. His car was parked in its usual spot, plugged in. The new system was armed. All he had to do was wait. At around midnight, the familiar sound of footsteps came through the quiet street. Karen appeared just as Tom expected. She looked around quickly, making sure nobody was watching. Then she unplugged Tom's car and started to connect her own. The moment she moved near the charger, the motion sensor activated. The speaker came to life with a clear message. Warning, you are using private property without permission. Please step away from the charger. Karen froze. Her eyes widened and she glanced around nervously. The message repeated itself again. A few lights in nearby houses flicked on as neighbors peeked out their windows. Karen's face turned red. She quickly unplugged her car and rushed back to her driveway. From inside his house, Tom could hardly stop himself from laughing. The plan had worked perfectly. Karen had been caught and now the whole street knew it. The next morning, Tom stepped outside as usual. Karen was out too, but she avoided his eyes. She looked flustered, moving quickly as if she wanted to disappear. Tom decided not to say anything. He wanted her to wonder if he had planned it or if it was some kind of automatic system. For a couple of nights, Karen stayed away. Tom felt a sense of relief. Maybe she had finally learned her lesson. But on the third night, something unexpected happened. Tom checked his camera footage the next morning and was surprised to see Karen again. This time she had come prepared. She was wearing a hat and gloves, and she carried a small flashlight. She carefully looked around, as though she was trying to figure out how the system worked. Tom realized that the warning message might not be enough. Karen was stubborn, and her pride would not let her stop so easily. She wanted to prove that she could not be defeated. That evening, Tom called Sam again. She came back, Tom explained. I think she's trying to figure out how to get around the system. Sam shook his head. That woman has no shame. You need to step it up, Tom nodded. Yes, but I still don't want to make it harmful. I just need something stronger. Something that will convince her once and for all. Together, they brainstormed new ideas. One suggestion was to rig the charger so that instead of charging, it would trigger a harmless but surprising effect, like flashing lights or a loud alarm. Another was to install a hidden camera with a live notification so that Tom could catch her in the act and confront her directly. Tom liked the idea of lights. If the charger lit up like a stage whenever she touched it, there would be no way for her to continue unnoticed. Everyone would see. The next day, Tom went back to the hardware store. He bought bright LED lights, the kind that construction workers used for outdoor projects. He installed them carefully, connecting them to the same motion sensor. Now, whenever someone approached the charger at night, the lights would blast on like daylight. When everything was ready, Tom stepped back and admired his work. It looked normal during the day, but at night it would be impossible to ignore. That evening, he armed the system and waited again. Sure enough, at around midnight, Karen appeared. She moved slowly, shining her small flashlight, trying to find the hidden speaker. She crouched near the charger and started inspecting it. Suddenly, the motion sensor triggered, the loudspeaker repeated the warning message, and at the same moment, the powerful LED lights blasted on. The entire driveway glowed like a stage under a spotlight. Karen jumped in shock, shielding her eyes from the brightness. The warning message repeated again, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Windows opened and neighbors peered outside. A couple even stepped onto their porches to see what was going on. Karen scrambled to her feet and rushed back to her house, her face red with embarrassment. Inside his living room, Tom smiled again. This time the effect was even stronger. Karen had been caught not once but twice in front of her neighbors. Her reputation as the strict HOA president was starting to look shaky. The next morning, Tom noticed that Karen avoided eye contact again. She moved quickly, pretending to be busy, but he could see the embarrassment in her posture. Still, Tom knew this was not the end. Karen's pride was too strong. She might try again, not out of need, but out of stubbornness. She wanted to win. For Tom, it was no longer just about electricity. It was about teaching a lesson. He was determined to continue until Karen finally understood that she could not take advantage of others. And deep inside, Tom felt a quiet excitement. This was not just a problem anymore. It was becoming a challenge. A battle of patience, wit, and clever traps. Karen thought she could use her position in the HOA to control everyone. But Tom was proving that she had finally met someone who would not back down. The game had only just begun. Tom thought the bright lights and warning message would be enough to stop Karen once and for all. For several nights, the charger sat untouched, and his car charged fully without interruption. Tom felt a calm relief. Maybe, just maybe, Karen had finally learned her lesson. But Karen was not someone who gave up easily. In her mind, the entire neighborhood was under her control. She had been the HOA president for years, and she loved the power it gave her. When she walked around the community, people moved their trash cans or trimmed their lawns just because she raised an eyebrow. For someone like her, being embarrassed in front of neighbors was not something she could accept quietly. One afternoon, Tom was mowing his front lawn when Karen approached. She carried a folder of papers, her usual weapon whenever she wanted to intimidate someone. "Hello, Tom," she said, her voice a little too sweet. "I wanted to talk to you about your charger." Tom kept his expression neutral. "What about it?" Karen opened the folder and pulled out a paper. "I've been reviewing the HOA guidelines. While it doesn't directly mention private charging stations, it does say that outdoor equipment should not create disturbances or affect the look of the neighborhood. Your lights and loudspeaker are very disruptive. Several neighbors have already mentioned how bright it was at night." Tom nearly laughed. He knew exactly who those several neighbors were. Most likely it was only Karen herself. But he kept calm. "My charger is on my property and the equipment is there for security," Tom replied. "It is not against any rule. And as for the lights, they only come on when someone approaches the charger at night." Karen's smile faded slightly, but she kept her tone firm. "Tom, as HOA president, I have the responsibility to make sure our community stays peaceful. I would like you to remove the lights and speaker. They are unnecessary." Tom shook his head. "They are necessary. Someone has been trying to use my charger without permission. I have every right to protect my property." For a moment, Karen's face turned red, but she quickly composed herself. She closed the folder and gave a stiff smile. "Very well. But don't be surprised if you receive an official notice from the HOA." Tom watched her walk away, her shoulders stiff. He knew she would not stop. If she could not secretly use his charger, she would try to force him to remove it. That evening, Tom sat in his living room and thought about the situation. He realized that the battle was moving to a new stage. It was no longer just about Karen sneaking around at night. Now she was trying to use her authority to pressure him. Sam came over again and Tom explained everything. Sam leaned back on the couch and shook his head. "She's trying to flip the story. First she steals your electricity and now she wants to make you look like the problem." "Classic." Tom nodded. "Exactly. That's why I need to be careful. I can't just fight her with anger. I need proof. Real proof that she's the one causing trouble." Sam grinned. "Then let's collect it. If she keeps coming back, we'll catch her every time." The two friends began upgrading the security system even more. Tom installed a second camera with a clearer view of the driveway. This one captured sharper images and even recorded sound. He also added a small device that tracked the power usage of the charger. That way he could show exactly when and how much electricity was being used. Within a week, Tom had a full system in place. If Karen dared to try again, he would have undeniable evidence. Sure enough, one night the cameras recorded movement. Karen crept out of her house around midnight. She looked around cautiously, clearly aware of the lights and warning system. But this time she carried something new, a long extension cord. Tom watched the footage the next morning, his eyes wide. Instead of trying to plug directly into his charger, Karen had connected the cord to her car, then tried to stretch it toward his charger. She was clearly trying to outsmart the system by keeping herself farther away. As soon as the motion sensor detected movement, the lights exploded into brightness. The warning voice echoed again. Karen froze, tugging at the cord. But because she was farther away, she ended up struggling in the middle of the driveway under the spotlight. Several neighbors opened their windows again. One man across the street even chuckled loudly and said, "There she goes again." Karen yanked the cord back, almost tripping over it, and stormed back to her house. Tom replayed the footage multiple times. This was gold. Not only did he have video of her trying again, but now it was even more obvious that she was sneaking around. The next day, Tom printed out some screenshots from the video. He did not plan to show them to the HOA yet, but he wanted to be ready. He placed the papers in a folder labeled Evidence. For a few days, things were quiet. Tom charged his car in peace and Karen stayed inside. But Tom knew it was only temporary. Karen's pride was like a fire that would not go out. She hated losing, and she hated that Tom had turned the situation against her. Sure enough, the next weekend, Karen made her move in a different way. Tom received an envelope in his mailbox. It was an official-looking letter from the HOA. The letter claimed that his charger was causing a disturbance and demanded that he remove the security system immediately. If he failed to comply, the HOA would fine him. Tom read the letter carefully. It was written in formal language, but he could tell it was Karen's work. The problem for her was that the HOA rules did not actually support her claim. There was nothing against security systems, especially not when they were on private property. Still, Tom knew this could get messy. He called Sam again and explained the situation. "Looks like she's trying to use the HOA to bully me," Tom said. Sam smirked. "Then it's time you show the HOA what's really going on. You've got the evidence, right?" Tom nodded. "Yes, I have videos, sound recordings, and even power usage logs." Sam grinned wider. "Perfect. Then let her dig her own hole. When she pushes too hard, you'll show everyone the truth." That night, Tom sat down and organized his evidence. He labeled each video by date and time. He highlighted the parts where Karen was caught in the lights trying to use the charger. He even created a chart showing the electricity that had been used on nights when his own car was not charging. By the time he was done, he had a solid case. If Karen wanted a fight, Tom was ready. Meanwhile, Karen was growing more frustrated. She thought the letter would scare Tom into giving up, but he seemed unfazed. She told a few neighbors that Tom was being difficult and that his charger was ruining the look of the neighborhood. But the neighbors were not blind. They had seen her antics at night, and whispers began spreading. Some even started to laugh about it quietly. For years, Karen had been bossy and controlling. But now she was the one caught misbehaving. One evening, Tom overheard two neighbors talking near the mailbox. "Did you see the lights come on again last week?" one of them said. "Yes," the other replied with a chuckle. "And guess who was standing there again, Karen?" They both laughed. Tom smiled to himself as he walked back to his house. The situation was changing. Karen had tried to embarrass him, but now she was the one losing respect. Still, Tom knew the final showdown had not yet come. Karen was stubborn, and she would not stop until she either got her way or was completely exposed, and Tom was ready. He had the patience, the proof, and the determination to see this through. The battle between Tom and Karen was far from over, but one thing was clear. The more Karen tried to push, the deeper she was falling into her own trap. Tom sat at his dining table, the envelope from the HOA still lying open in front of him. The letter Karen had sent was nothing more than another attempt to control him, but it was official looking enough that some people might take it seriously. Tom knew he had to be careful about his next step. If he reacted with anger, Karen would twist the situation and make him look like the problem. If he reacted with patience and evidence, however, the truth would eventually speak louder than her words. He carefully gathered all the files he had prepared. The videos, the screenshots, the power usage logs, and even a timeline of events were neatly organized in a binder. He knew Karen would not expect him to be this prepared. That evening, Sam stopped by to check on him. "So what's the plan?" Sam asked, sitting across the table. Tom tapped the binder. "The next HOA meeting is this weekend. If Karen tries to push her false complaint in front of everyone, I'll be ready. I'll show them the truth, but I want to time it right. If I reveal everything too soon, she'll find a way to deny it. I want her to walk straight into her own mistake." Sam grinned. "Smart. Let her dig deeper, then drop the evidence when she least expects it." In the days leading up to the meeting, Tom kept charging his car as usual. The lights and speaker remained active, and the cameras continued recording. Karen, however, did not approach the charger again. She was keeping her distance, probably planning to use the HOA meeting to corner Tom instead of sneaking around. The night of the meeting finally arrived. It was held in the community clubhouse, a medium-sized hall where residents gathered once a month. Chairs were arranged in rows, and a long table was placed at the front for the HOA board members. As always, Karen sat in the middle, her folder of papers neatly stacked in front of her. Neighbors filed in, chatting quietly. Some nodded politely to Tom, while others whispered about the ongoing drama. Word of Karen's late-night antics had spread further than she realized. Karen opened the meeting with her usual formal tone. She spoke about lawn maintenance, parking rules, and other small issues. Then she cleared her throat and shifted to the topic she had been waiting for. "Next," she said, adjusting her glasses, "we must discuss the matter of disturbances caused by private equipment, specifically the outdoor charging station installed by Mr. Tom. Several complaints have been made regarding bright lights, loud alarms, and overall disruption of the peaceful environment we value in this neighborhood." She paused, glancing around the room as if expecting nods of agreement. A few people shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Karen continued, "As president, I am recommending that this equipment be removed or at least modified to comply with the HOA's guidelines." Tom sat quietly, waiting for her to finish. Then he stood up. "May I respond?" Karen forced a smile. "Of course." Tom walked to the front of the room carrying his binder. He placed it on the table and opened it. "First, I want to make it clear that my charging station is on my property. It was installed legally with proper permits. The lights and alarms are security measures that only activate when someone approaches the charger at night. They do not disturb anyone unless there is suspicious activity." Karen quickly interrupted. "Tom, that is not the issue. The issue is that your equipment is excessive and unnecessary. It makes the neighborhood look unwelcoming." Tom held up a printed screenshot. "Actually, the real issue is that someone has been using my charger without permission. These measures were necessary to protect my property. And I have proof." The room grew quiet. Tom flipped through the binder showing screenshots of Karen caught in the bright lights, standing near the charger with her car plugged in. Gasps filled the room. A few neighbors even exchanged knowing looks. Karen's face turned pale, then red. "That is a complete misinterpretation," she stammered. "I was only checking the charger to make sure it was safe for the community." Tom pressed a button on his phone, and the speaker played the audio recording from one of the nights. Karen's footsteps could be heard, followed by the sound of her unplugging his car. The warning voice echoed, and in the background a neighbor's voice could be heard saying, "There she goes again." The room erupted in murmurs. It was undeniable. Karen tried to regain control. "This is an invasion of my privacy. You cannot record me without permission." Tom remained calm. "The cameras are on my property. They are legal. They record anyone who approaches my driveway, which is perfectly within my rights. And the electricity logs show power being used on nights when my car was not charging. I should not have to pay for someone else's car." The HOA board members looked uneasy. One of them, a man named Daniel, finally spoke. "Karen, this evidence is clear. You cannot use another resident's property without permission. This is not acceptable behavior for an HOA president." Another board member nodded. "I agree. The security measures are justified. If anything, we should be apologizing to Tom for doubting him." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but the words stuck. Her authority was slipping, and she could see it. For the first time, she did not look confident. She looked cornered. The meeting ended with the board officially recognizing Tom's right to keep his charger and security system. They even asked him to share advice on how others could protect their property if needed. Karen left the room quickly, her head down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Tom walked home with Sam at his side. Sam clapped him on the back. "You handled that perfectly. She tried to play her usual game and you flipped it on her." Tom smiled. "It's not over yet. She's embarrassed, but I know Karen. She won't accept defeat so easily. She'll try something else," and Tom was right. Over the next few days, Karen avoided him, but she started spreading rumors. She told a few neighbors that Tom had set her up, that he was using technology to make her look bad. Some people ignored her, while others quietly laughed behind her back. Still, Tom stayed alert. He kept his cameras running and his lights active. Each night he checked the footage, expecting Karen to try again. For a while, nothing happened. The street was quiet and his car charged peacefully. But one night, something unusual appeared on the camera. Instead of Karen alone, she was standing outside with another person. It was her cousin Mark, who often visited her. Together they stood near the edge of Tom's driveway, pointing at the charger and whispering. Tom leaned closer to the screen. He could not hear what they were saying, but he could guess. Karen was not done. She was planning her next move. The battle was far from finished, and Tom, calm but determined, was ready for whatever came next. Tom thought the battle was over after the HOA meeting, but the quiet that followed made him uneasy. He knew Karen too well by now. She had been embarrassed in front of the entire community, and her pride would not let her rest. She was plotting something, and Tom needed to stay prepared. The recording from his cameras confirmed his suspicion. Karen had not given up. Instead, she had brought her cousin Mark into the picture. They were seen pointing at his charger, whispering in the dark. Tom could not hear their words, but their body language said enough. Karen wanted revenge. Tom sat with Sam the next morning and showed him the footage. Sam leaned forward, frowning. "Looks like she's trying to bring someone else into this fight." "Be careful, Tom. She might be planning something bigger this time. Tom nodded. That's why I've been working on one last upgrade. If she tries again, it'll be the end of this nonsense. He spent the next 2 days improving his system. He added brighter motion lights, reinforced the lock on his charger, and even installed a hidden camera at a higher angle to capture the entire driveway and street. He wanted every angle covered so there could be no excuse or denial. At the same time, Karen was busy spreading news stories around the neighborhood. She told some people that Tom was spying on residents, that his cameras were a threat to their privacy, but most neighbors did not believe her. They had already seen the proof of her actions. Still, Karen was stubborn. With Mark's help, she decided to make one more attempt to discredit Tom. One Friday night, when most people were at home watching TV or resting after work, Karen and Mark walked toward Tom's house. The cameras captured everything. Karen was holding a clipboard and Mark carried a flashlight. They looked like they were pretending to inspect the area, but Tom knew better. Karen spoke loudly enough for the camera's microphone to pick up. This equipment is dangerous. We'll need to remove it before it harms someone. We are only doing what's best for the community. Tom, watching from inside, shook his head. He turned to Sam, who was visiting again. She's trying to act like this is official business, but she's not the HOA board anymore. She can't order anything without approval. Sam laughed quietly. She's digging her own hole. Suddenly, Mark stepped closer to the charger and tried to pull at the cable. That triggered the alarm. The bright lights flashed. The warning voice activated and the loud siren filled the street. Karen jumped back, startled, while Mark stumbled. Neighbors came out of their houses, drawn by the noise. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered. Everyone saw Karen and Mark caught in the flood of light, standing at Tom's charger like intruders. Tom walked outside calmly, his phone in his hand. "Evening, Karen. Evening, Mark. Need some help?" Karen straightened her back and tried to recover her dignity. "This charger is a threat. We were inspecting it for safety reasons. The HOA has every right to ensure the community is protected." One neighbor spoke up. "Karen, you lost your position as president after the last meeting. You don't have any authority now." Another neighbor added, "And we all saw the evidence last time. You've been using his charger without asking. Now you're here again in the middle of the night. This is not safety inspection. This is harassment." Karen's face turned red as the crowd murmured. Mark tried to defend her. "She's only trying to look out for everyone. You don't understand." Tom raised his phone. "I recorded everything. The video shows you approaching, pulling at my charger and triggering the alarm. If you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to involve the police." That word, police, made Karen flinch. She knew that if law enforcement got involved, her actions could have real consequences. One of the HOA board members, Daniel, happened to be among the neighbors that night. He stepped forward. "Karen, this has gone too far. First you used Tom's charger without permission. Then you tried to cover it up with lies. Now you're trespassing and attempting to interfere with his property. This behavior will not be tolerated." Karen tried to argue, but Daniel continued firmly. "The board will hold a special session tomorrow to vote on your standing as a member. I'm warning you now, it does not look good." The crowd slowly dispersed, shaking their heads. Karen and Mark walked away quickly, their plan completely backfired. The next day, the HOA held the emergency session. Residents packed the room, eager to see what would happen. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming she was misunderstood and that Tom's cameras were the real problem. But Tom presented the latest footage, showing Karen and Mark in the act. The evidence was overwhelming. When the vote was called, the decision was nearly unanimous. Karen was officially removed from the HOA board and banned from interfering with other residents' property. Mark, though not a resident, was warned never to set foot on private driveways again. For the first time in a long while, Tom felt a heavy weight lift off his shoulders. The endless drama was finally over. Later that evening, Tom sat on his porch with Sam. The sun was setting and the neighborhood was quiet. Sam handed him a soda. "You did it. You kept calm, stayed smart, and now she can't bother you anymore." Tom smiled. "It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I wasn't just protecting my charger. I was protecting my right to live peacefully in my own home." Over the following weeks, life in the neighborhood returned to normal. Tom continued using his charger without interference. Neighbors, once cautious about the drama, now greeted him warmly, respecting the way he handled the situation. As for Karen, she kept a low profile. She no longer had power in the HOA, and most neighbors had lost trust in her. She stayed in her house, rarely coming out except for small errands. The community had moved on, leaving her behind. Tom, however, did not feel anger toward her anymore. He had learned that some people thrive on control and attention, but they eventually defeat themselves when the truth comes out. One Saturday morning, as Tom polished his car, a neighbor walked by and smiled. "Glad things are peaceful now. You handled that better than most of us could have." Tom nodded. Sometimes the best trap is not just the alarm or the lights. It's patience, letting someone show their true self. The neighbor chuckled and continued walking while Tom looked at his Charger. It stood there silently, not just a tool for powering his car, but a symbol of his perseverance. Sam pulled into the driveway at that moment, waving. "Hey, want to take a drive? You've got enough charge for a long trip now." Tom laughed, closing the car door behind him. "Let's go. After all this, I think I've earned some peace and quiet on the open road." As the car rolled out of the driveway, the neighborhood looked calm, bathed in the warm glow of morning. The battles with Karen were over, and Tom finally had what he wanted all along: peace, fairness, and the simple joy of living without interference.